Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And of course the most important updates are coming from Moscow, the Russian Federation. Yesterday, very late in the evening, the president of Russian Federation made a video, made a speech, and he told us a lot of very interesting updates, so let's discuss them in details. Vladimir Putin confirmed that yesterday's Storm Shadow missile strike hit the command post of the Sever group in the Kursk region. There are dead and wounded. Western missiles struck Russian military facilities in the Bryansk and the Kursk region. So Putin was talking about this attack. Let's take a look once again at this video. The video was published in the internet somewhere in the morning of the 21st of November, and this is exactly the moment and the strike the president of Russian Federation was talking about. In this video we can see the headquarters or command center of the armed force of Russian Federation, of the group of forces north, and we see how the 12 Storm Shadows attacked and these buildings, these facilities, and once again, according to Putin, as a result of this attack with the Storm Shadows, some Russian officers and soldiers were wounded and killed. So this is the turning point, and this is the beginning of the completely different special military operation. Now let's return back to Putin and his statements. The conflict in Ukraine has become global in nature following the Western missile strike on Russia. The objectives set by armed forces of Ukraine during the attack on the Russian Federation by Western long-range missiles were not achieved. The armed forces of Ukraine use of long-range weapons against Russian Federation cannot affect the course of the special military operation, which is very important. The Russian armed forces carried out combined strike on Ukrainian defense industry facilities in response to American and British weapon strike on Russia. A successful test of hypersonic Oreshnik missile was conducted against a target in Dnipropetrovsk. The test of Oreshnik missile system against Ukraine was conducted in response to the US actions to produce and deploy medium and short-range missiles. The missile approaches its target at 10 Mach, which is about 3.4 kilometers per second. Existing missile system, air defense system, including American elements in Europe, will not be able to intercept missiles like the Oreshnik. The Russians are planning to repeat the strikes, as I understand, because Putin also stated that the Russian Federation will warn civilians in advance in the event of the use of the systems such as Oreshnik. Now let's take a look. Let's return back to Dnipro once again, because it's a very important video. Let's take a look at this video once again, how the Russians were bombing and attacking the city of Dnipro. Obviously, when people was watching this video, most of them were shocked. I was shocked for 100% because I haven't seen anything like this before. And another important thing is that the Russians, according to information we have, announced about the military exercises, in the eastern part of Ukraine. So the territories between the city of so this information will publish today. This is the map, and Russia closes part of airspace for missile tests from November 22 to November 23. A similar message was published at the time when the Oreshnik ballistic missile was launched over Dnipro. So most likely, according to this piece of news, on the 22nd and the 23rd of November of 2024, the Russians will repeat the strike. Now we have very interesting videos that were published from the border with Kazakhstan. Let's take a look at them. And according to the author of this video, here we can see the flight path of the Oreshnik missile. I can't tell you for sure whether it's true or not. Maybe this is something else, but the sources are saying that this is exactly the Oreshnik missile that was heading towards Dnipro on the territory of Ukraine. And we have this Oreshnik missile from another angle, and this is the same missile but from another angle, also somewhere from the part of Russia between Kazakhstan and Ukraine. And of course people are asking question why the Russians decided to call the missile of Oreshnik by the name of Oreshnik. And today we got very interesting analysis and very interesting photo. For example, right in the left picture we can see Oreshnik, and in English it sounds like hazel, and to the right we can see the Russians the Oreshnik warhead. So as you can see, there are a lot of similar things, and this is the reason why the Russians decided to call the missile of Oreshnik Oreshnik by the name of Oreshnik. In English, it sounds hazel. Anyway, let's return back to Ukraine. Once again, the Russians announced the closest part of airspace in the eastern, the southeastern part of Ukraine, from November 22 to November 23, and we start receiving a lot of updates from Kiev today. The sources are saying that there is a threat of a missile strike on the Verkhovna Rada in Kiev in the coming days. We have been informed, People's Deputy Taras Batenka. We will see will it happen or not, but Putin has raised the stakes to the maximum. Furthermore, we have additional reports about the same story, that Verkhovna Rada deputies called to avoid Kiev center. Ukrainian deputies were warned about the threat of shelling and urged to limit their presence and that of their families within the government quarter in the center of Kiev. This was reported by the publicans of Ukrainian Truth. You know that this is very interesting situation, because when the Russians shown us the possibilities of Oreshnik, you should be very stupid if you decide to continue bombing and attacking the territory of Russian Federation, because it's obviously and clear that Ukrainians will not be able to prevail the Russians on the ground because they don't have such a possibilities. And you know, today we got another very important statement. Today, according to information we have, the chief architect of the Ukrainian Armed Forces combat plans for the Black Sea, UK Chief of Defense Staff Radakin, has arrived in Kiev. So today we got a very important person. UK Chief of Defense Staff Radakin has arrived in Kiev. Some people are saying that he came to Kiev because maybe he brought some message, but I believe that, if you remember, several days ago we got reports that Ukraine still has up to 50 missiles, Storm Shadow missiles. And of course, the Ukrainians use just 12 missiles, so that means that they still have 38. And of course, the UK Chief of Defense Staff arrived in Kiev with the purpose probably to take these 38 back to United Kingdom, because now it's very risky to use these Storm Shadow missiles deep inside of Russia, because we have very clear message from the President of Russian Federation that Russia considers itself entitled to use weapons against the facilities of those countries that allow their weapons to be used against Russian facilities. So this is very important. This is probably the reason why the military officials and authorities of United Kingdom arrived in Kiev today. But there might be other reasons why the UK officials came to Kiev today. According to information we have, for example, the United Kingdom army is ready. If British army was asked to fight tonight, it would fight tonight, and I don't think anybody in this room should be under any illusion that if Russians invaded Eastern Europe tonight, then we'd meet them in that fight. So, you know, we have a lot of statements that United Kingdom is preparing itself to fight with Russians. It's very difficult to understand how it's going to happen, but for example, the Russian authorities reported that currently Britain is directly involved in the conflict in Ukraine. That was stated by the Russian ambassador to London. And let's discuss finalize the situation with the statements that were made by the United States of America, because there are also lots of very interesting statements. And the US notified Ukraine and its allies in advance of Russia's upcoming launch of a medium-range missiles to prepare for it. 30 minutes before the launch of the Oreshnik, Russia sent the US an automatic notification via the Nuclear Risk Reduction Center. So, which means that there are communications between the United States of America and Russia. They're not breaking the connections. They always try to, let's say, to keep each other informed, and most likely when we should follow now the United States of America, and the next time when we receive any update like to close the embassy in the United States of America or something like this, this will mean that the Russians are going to launch another Oreshnik missile on the territory of Ukraine. So this is it. We are waiting for 22nd and 23rd of November. Most likely these days are going to be very difficult for Ukraine. As for the situation on the ground, of course, the most important updates during the previous 24 hours are coming from the Kurakhova and Novelika Novoselovka direction. The majority of the flags during the previous 24 hours we got from the eastern flank of Velika Novoselovka. Lots of flags, as you can see. because a lot of mappers, both neutral and Ukrainian mappers, reported that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to improve their position significantly and to take under control a lot of trenches and the fortifications between the village of Ilinka and Novoselovka and the village of Shakhtarska. Let's compare the map. This is the situation on the map by the end of the 21st of November, and as you can see, this is the situation by the beginning of the 22nd of November. Furthermore, we have reports that confirm Russian control over these fields, and we have video that's confirmed the Russians' presence on the ground. In this video that haven't uploaded, as you can see, we might see the attack of Russian forces in these positions. The video was geolocated. There were several BMP captured this area, and in some episode there was a moment when the Ukrainians were counterattacking the Russians. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor, at least in the vicinity of the village of Razdolny. Now we have no doubts that maybe the Russians will be able and will attack the village of Razdolny today, and that the Russians probably will be able to answer the eastern part of Ilinka Novoselovka also today. Furthermore, according to different sources, the Russians have already entered the village of Ilinka Novoselovka, and that the clashes are already taking place, maybe for the farms, maybe for some buildings exactly in the eastern part. Furthermore, we have additional changes on the ground in the vicinity of the village by the name of Ilinka. In this video, we can see the significant number of Russian tanks that were heading towards the village of Ilinka. I'll remind you that according to the units and the forces of the 79th Brigade, the village of Ilinka was already captured by the Russians, and the Ukrainians retreat towards the village of Romanovka. We still haven't received anything that can confirm this, but now we got at least the video that confirms that the Russians managed to get as close as possible to the settlement. The Russians were attacking from the north, and the Russians were heading towards the settlement of Ilinka. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map in Russian favor. These territories, you can see, used to be considered as a contested zone. Now we have no doubts that the Russians have complete control over this territory. And we see that the dynamic in this area is very fast. Just yesterday, the Russians secured the village of Dalna and maintained positions along the tree lines, and now we have the Russian troopers heading towards the village of Ilinka, and most likely today or tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, the Ukrainians will be forced to fall back from this settlement. Furthermore, we have some changes on the ground between the village of Novoselidovka and Berestki. The Russians are moving further in the western direction, heading towards the railways, and the Russians already, according to different mappers, managed to establish control over 50% of the settlement by the name of Berestki. So the situation and the battle for this territory, for the Kurakhova and for Ilinka Novoselovka, is coming to an end. And most likely during the next 3 months, most likely the Russians will be able to take under control everything that is located inside of this red line. And after the Russians are able to take these territories under control, they will have good possibilities and good opportunities to move further in the southwestern direction with the purpose to attack the settlement of Gulyai-Polye. So the Russians will basically repeat the same story as they created here. We have activization of the Russians in the northwestern part of Selidova. Different mappers reported that the Russians managed to improve their positions around the village of Petrivka along the railways, and that the Russians managed to improve their positions in the direction of Dachinska. That was also stated by neutral mappers. As you can see, there are very heavy clashes in this area. The Russians are not going to reduce the pressure despite the fact that winter has come. The Ukrainians, as for now, don't have anything to show the Russians how to stabilize the situation, or at least to slow them down. And the main problem and reason of this is that Ukrainians on the territory of Sudzha are blocked, that I have up to 30-40,000 soldiers there, and these 30-40 soldiers would be very good somewhere in the Pokrovsk or in the Tonetsk direction, but the Ukrainians can't do this because if they retreat, they might lose much more territories in comparison with just regular and step-by-step retreat from the territory of Kurakhova and from the territory of Ilinka Novoselovka. And that's it for a short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.